I realized when LG was talking that I'm the old alumnus because when I was here, the motto was, "And gladly would he learn and gladly teach" from Canterbury Tales. It was a controversy when they shortened it. Uh, Thank you, Vice President Patterson, and I also want to thank Steve and Cindy Adams. It's been wonderful meeting you, and especially for creating this Hall of Fame within the Division of Student Affairs. I assure you that I would not be in a Hall of Fame if it was based on my academic record alone. And I never allowed a class or a test to get in the way of an important student affairs meeting. Uh, I I want to thank Mike Shermer, who I believe was somewhat behind this Hall of Fame and was a friend of mine both on campus and throughout my life. I want to acknowledge my husband, Terry, and it's so new it's almost awkward to say the word husband. We're sort of training ourselves. But he's wonderful, he's super smart, and he's also the foremost scientist on sudden death cardiac arrest. So I just wanted to get that out there. Uh, and then there's a couple people here just because I was involved in the marriage fight, and it was so recent that I feel like I need to recognize Dave Bentlin, who many of you know over here, is a true leader. He helped us recruit our plaintiffs for the Illinois marriage case. He really worked hard in winning hearts and minds in Central Illinois, and just fantastic work. And then, of course, Representative Sims, who we tormented, and he was a strong voice on our side. His understanding of families and caring about families extended immediately to our work, and worked hard with his colleagues to tell that story. And so I thank you for your votes, because it would not have happened otherwise, without question. And I want to thank Matt Matt Riley, who's been my student host, who I find to be a really courageous and extraordinary young man who lives a very authentic life. And to be honest with you, I did not lead that extraordinary, authentic life when I was here. I was closeted, and it made me very afraid to even think that I could be gay or out. And so it's wonderful to see you here and the work you're doing. And the thing that was so odd about being closeted at Illinois State was I was on this incredible path with student affairs, which was so much about not only the development of the students around us, but ourselves, and really leading our full lives. And I was lucky enough to have these three mentors, all of which are no longer here, and one has moved on even further, that had profound impact on my life. And I just wanted to tell a little bit about each of them. The first was Trish Williams, my hall coordinator when I was first in RA. She was doing her thesis on the Myers-Briggs, real world of Myers-Briggs, such a shock for student affairs. And she had studied under Isabel Briggs, and the RAs were her lab. And I am not just an ENFP, but I was the perfect ENFP because I was all extrovert, all intuitive, all perceptive, and Trish was an ESTJ. So we had a lot of issues, and she had really taught me to understand that my intuition was this tool, a real tool that I could use to make decisions, and it could guide me, but I should in no way expect it to influence others. It wasn't enough just to tell her that I knew I was right. And she taught me how to make my case and find the facts and find the ways to tell my story. The second was an amazing woman named Geneva Walker Johnson, who held some important job in the Office of Residential Life, as we called it at the time, and was my advisor to ARH. And she and Trish were very close friends. They were both African American women, and they had been part of the civil rights struggle in the 60s, and they had dedicated their lives to racial justice, and both had broken many glass ceilings, both before they came here and while they were here. She was extraordinarily patient with me. I grew up in Springfield, Illinois, and I really did not have any understanding of the issues of race and the responsibility I had in my role as a student leader to be inclusive, and my role as a white man, and the privilege I had to be able to focus on racial justice. And it's been part of my life ever since. I didn't even know I get emotional. I don't know what I would have done without them. And third was Jude Boyer. And I don't know how many people know Jude that were here, but it is almost impossible to adequately describe her, although my friend Dan Wagner and I do amazing impersonations of her. And In fact, everyone I know that knows Jude does an amazing imitation of her. But she had taught me very practical lessons. And so when you would go into her office, it was the absolute best time. You just look forward to it for so much. And some of it was just as simple as the how-tos of working through committees, or that if you're gathering information at cocktail parties, you needed to write it down right after it was over because you weren't going to remember anything the next morning. But the biggest lesson that she had taught me was to make sure that everyone was at the table when you were doing your work. And we would have, very messy meetings, setting fees and the room and board committee meetings and things like that. And she believed that if you had everyone there that had a stake in the issue, and especially those that disagreed with you, especially those that had opposing views, if you could get through that process and have an outcome, the outcome would be impossible to question once you were done. And so you were able to move forward with incredible confidence. Of all the achievements I'm most proud of to have been a part of in my experiences since Illinois State, as well as when I was here, I have to say that student affairs provided the foundation for the role that I've been able to play. I'm sure academics had some part of it, but I just don't remember. I only remember this stuff from here. The fight for freedom to marry in Illinois provided a very good example, because when we first began, and I'm confident Representative Sims could tell this story better than myself, but we had a supermajority, and we had just made this decision that we could easily pass the bill in this very insider's approach with some well-paid lobbyists, and it didn't go so well. And we had a setback. We didn't get a vote in May at the end of the session, and we had to take a step back, and there was a recognition that certainly I had and many of us did, that we didn't have everyone at the table, that we hadn't included people. We didn't recognize the cultures of the state of Illinois and how this state functions and works. And so we restarted, and we went back and we pulled everyone together. And we also recognized that for the LGBT community, we are at a place where we're at the inside, and we're sitting and we're working with our reps and senators to make decisions, but we're still also on the outside, and we still have to protest, and we still have to fight for our rights. And as messy as it was, what we learned was when we listened to others and really listened, and when we respected where people were coming from, especially the people that were not on our side, we could advance, and ultimately we did, and our success was unstoppable. And Illinois should be congratulated, because in addition to passing it legislatively, which is always sweet when the people do it, it also, in Illinois, is one of only 2 states in the country that passed it legislatively that made no compromises in that bill, that we did not give up any rights in terms of existing protections for women or minorities or the LGBT community in passing it. And so it's a victory that all of us share. Let me see where I'm at. Although there's times that I wish I could go back and learn to be more authentic when I was here, I wouldn't, mainly because I spent a lot of time with Mike Shermer watching Star Trek, and I know what happens when you mess with the time-space continuum. It is extraordinarily messy if you change the past, but also because even in the time of me when I was here and I had self-doubt, Illinois State met me where I was and allowed me to really find my path. And so I thank all of you. Thanks.